Baseball's steroid scandal took center stage on Capitol Hill today. Star pitcher Roger Clemens and his accuser, former trainer Brian McNamee, testified before a congressional committee about accusations of steroid use, documented in the Mitchell report. Both men stuck to their stories.
During the time that I worked with Roger Clemens, I injected him on numerous occasions with steroids and human growth hormone.
I'm not saying Senator Mitchell's report is entirely wrong. I am saying Brian McNamee's statements about me are wrong. Let me be clear. I have never taken steroids or HGH.
Two very different statements, both men under oath. Fox 5's Dave Benz covering the steroid scandal live on Capitol Hill tonight. Dave?
Well, Laura, both men were reminded they were under oath multiple times during the session, which lasted over 4.5 hours. And ultimately, we have more questions than answers. And neither McNamee nor Clemens escaped Capitol Hill today without their credibility being called into question.
It's impossible to believe that this is a simple misunderstanding. Someone isn't telling the truth.
And with that, today's marathon hearing was underway, and it didn't take long for the committee to begin chipping away at the credibility of both men, beginning with Brian McNamee.
I told federal investigators twice that Roger and Andy had nothing to do with it. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Is that a lie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're here to tell the truth. You're here under oath, and yet we have lie after lie after lie after lie, where you've told this committee and the people of this country that Roger Clemens did things that I don't know what to believe. I know one thing I don't believe, and that's you.
Amongst the biggest points of contention for Clemens were contradictions in deposition statements. He had never spoken with McNamee about HGH. But later in the same deposition, admitted he talked to him about his wife's use of the hormone.
How do you reconcile 3 times saying you didn't, and then later when somebody specifically finally asks you about your wife, you have a recollection of 2 very distinct and memorable conversations?
Yeah. Another chink in Clemens' argument surrounded his initial refusal to speak with Senator George Mitchell.
We were informed by Major League Baseball that all communications with current players, such as Mr. Clemens, had to go through the Players Association. Those were the union rules, and we played by the rules.
Clemens denied ever getting an inquiry from the Players Union or his agents, and argued he should have been contacted directly. On that point, Roger Clemens said, hey, I'm a public person. A former U.S. president was able to contact me. Why couldn't Senator Mitchell find me? I'm very easy to find. He was very adamant about that point. 4.5 hours, clearly a long time to boil down into just a couple of minutes, but you get the gist that neither man gave an inch here today. And the representatives who held the session were divided on both sides, some lining up with Clemens, some with McNamee. But Senators, or I should say Congressman Davis and Waxman, both in the post-session interview did express an endorsement of Brian McNamee as being more believable. Laura?
Yeah, it was a pretty riveting hearing up there. Dave, what about the physical evidence from McNamee? Syringes, gauze pads supposedly had Clemens' DNA on them. What's the status of that evidence?
That is right now in the hands of federal prosecutors, and there's been no decision as to whether or not that will be taken any further. Clearly, the government has a decision to make on all that, Laura.
All right, Dave, we will be watching. Thank you. Today's hearing, by the way, closes out the congressional investigation on steroids in baseball. It's now in the hands of federal investigators, and they will decide whether they want to pursue perjury charges against either Clemens or McNamee.
Officer Palmero saw their careers tarnished during a hearing in March of 2005. Today's hearing took 4.5 hours, and like 2 years ago, reputations were tarnished. Dave Benz was on Capitol Hill this morning and had one of the best seats in the House. Dave.
Felt it was long, but certainly not boring. Both McNamee and Clemens saw their credibility take some hits. McNamee was called a liar and a drug dealer, while Clemens was told, quote, it's hard to believe you. Nonetheless, both men stuck to their stories.
I'm not saying Senator Mitchell's report is entirely wrong. I am saying Brian McNamee's statements about me are wrong. Let me be clear. I have never taken steroids or HGH.
I never injected Roger Clemens or anyone else with lidocaine or B12.
Mr. McNamee's given me 3 shots of, when we were in Toronto, 3 shots of B12, 2 in New York.
Mr. McNamee, is that, you concur with that?
The first time I heard of Roger taking B12 was on 60 Minutes.
Now the case goes into the hands of federal prosecutors who have all the physical evidence, the syringe and the gauze pads which supposedly have Roger Clemens' DNA, and they must determine whether or not they want to pursue perjury charges. Feldy?
All right, Dave, thanks very much. Brings us to today's Chevy poll question. Who do you believe is
Starting off, here we go, folks. All right, from the hardwoods now to the gridiron. D.C. is ready for the battle in Seattle. We know how much anticipation there is here, but are the Seahawks fans just as excited as we are? Fox 5's Dave Benz hits the streets to find out the flavor of Seattle.
Seattle, Washington, home to the Space Needle and home to people who live in Seattle. But how many of them actually know what the 12 on the Space Needle's for? We decided to find out. We're just wondering, can you tell us what the 12 on top of the Space Needle's for?
I think it means the 12th month. Is it working down to the first month, is it? I don't know.
We have no idea.
No idea?
We thought maybe it was football, but we don't know.
I'm actually not sure. I just noticed that a couple minutes ago.
Do you really know what it means and you're just joking, or?
Clearly you know what the 12 is for.
The 12th fan.
Yes.
Okay, and what is that?
It's the unknown 12th person that evidently is supporting the Seahawks for the playoffs.
Why a 12, though?
You know, I'm not a big sports fan, so I probably shouldn't say that on TV, but I don't know.
I'm sure you guys know, and we should know.
There was a group of people down at Questfield, I guess yesterday, signing the 12th flag.
Is this how you guys roll in Seattle?
Yeah, it's the way we do it. By God, this is how we get news coverage.
Yeah, well, anyway, who's going to win the game?
We don't even know who's playing in the game.
Beautiful. Do you care who wins the game tomorrow? Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you what. If you think the Redskins are going to win, then you give me a big smile.
That's a big smile.
Look at that smile. You're a Redskins fan.
They start young out there being Redskins. Go Skins. All right. By the way, that flag stands for Seattle's 12th man, the nickname given to Seahawks fans. So that's just to look at their fans. But how well do you know the city is